What is happening, fishers? Welcome back to the channel. So the weather has really not been playing its part in East London. Myself and Dean are both stuck indoors today. We've got another torrential downpour and the fishing itself in general has not been great lately, guys. We have really been struggling to get onto some good fish. The weather in East London has been completely upside down for the longest of times. And I think the last 6 weeks has probably been the toughest fishing that myself and Dean have faced in the longest time. So we thought that while we're stuck inside, let's take the opportunity to do a couple tackle reviews, run through a few knots, do a little bit of tricks and some tips and what we've got going, and let's just add it into the channel so that you guys can see what we get up to and what we do. So today we thought let's run through the fishing rods that both of us use. Before I get too in depth with things, guys, this is really just a basic review of the rods that we use. We are not going to be getting technical. We're not going into too much detail. I think at a later stage we can break each rod down and give you the perks and the pluses and the minuses and why you should bite and why you shouldn't bite. This is not that, guys. This is just why we chose the rods, what we love about them, and why we will continue to use them, for as long as we possibly can, until they break at some point on a very big fish, let's hope. But guys, if you've been watching the channel for some time, you will know that I am an 11-foot fisherman. I love fishing with an 11-foot rod. I think that it adds a certain element of skill that you need to have and a certain element of excitement because you are fishing with a much smaller rod and you don't have that extra length and that extra leverage when you are onto a big fish. So for me, it's a whole lot more fun and I love my 11-foot rods, and I honestly don't think that I'd change from fishing with an 11-foot. So I fish with two fishing rods, guys. I use the Assassin Sierra, which is, in my opinion, probably the best 11-foot rod that money can buy. This is the 2XH and it is rated to throw between 2 and 4 ounces. I have also got the Assassin Amir Cob Special. This is the extra heavy and this one is rated to throw between 1.5 and 4 ounces. Dean is the very technical guy when it comes to untraceable. He will talk about all of the carbon weaving and what makes everything so fancy and so good on the rods when it comes to what they're using and what materials they're using. Guys, I really don't know as much as I probably should know on these rods. The reason that I chose the Sierra initially was back in 2016. I had the older version of the Sierra, and for me, expensive meant that it was good. At that time, it was probably the most expensive 11-foot fishing rod money could buy, and I think today it probably still is the most expensive 11-foot fishing rod. But it is also probably the best 11-foot fishing rod, and that is my personal opinion, and I truly believe that. I don't think that you can find a better rod, out there. So I'm not going to give too much details because, as I said, I don't really have much specification detail to give you on these two rods. What I can tell you is that the guides, they're using Fuji guides. This one on the Sierra, they use the K series guide, and on the Cob Special, they use the O series guide. K series being the better guides, O series being the one just below that. All in all, guys, these are both amazing rods. They can both haul in big fish. The difference in them when it comes to landing fish, fighting fish, playing with fish, however you want to put it, is that the Sierra just has that extra backbone. The Cob Special can haul in just about anything, but on a big fish, when you're playing it, there's just something about that Sierra when it hits that sweet spot, and you know that you're going to bring that fish in no matter what. And despite loving both of these rods, the Sierra has always just had a special place in my equipment when it comes to my fishing stuff. And there's just something about the Sierra that ticks all the boxes for me in terms of what I fish with. So let me not speak for too long, guys. Let's get Dean in. He can tell you about his rods, and maybe he can give you some information on the cross weaving and the different fibers and whatever other jazz that Assassin uses to make their rods so great. So guys, I'll check in with you guys on the next one. Cheers.
How's it, guys? So Andrew's just handed over to me. So as he mentioned, he loves these 11-foot rods. I also like an 11-foot. So if we run through the Assassin range quickly, they start off with the Spin Tech, they move over from that to the Spin Zero, it goes up to the Amir range. The Amir have, I don't know how many rods, quite a few different rods in their range, with the Cobb Special being at the top of that end of the range, and then from there they have their Sierra, their flagship rod. Rods are fairly different price points, different quality rods. Major difference, obviously, the guards, the Sierra, let's get it down so you can see. Being a heavy duty shore game angling rod, there's a double seat on the guards, much stronger guards, heavy duty guards. Obviously it does make the rod a bit heavier than what the Amir is. This rod is designed for throwing big plugs, swim baits and things like that, off the boat, off the surf. If you want to fish bait with it, happy days, throwing drop shot, things like that. So it is a slightly heavier rod with the bigger guards and things like that. A bit more solidly built. Cross linear woven carbon. I don't know if Andrew can zoom in here and actually see. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to pick that up on the camera. That beautiful pattern there. With the Sierra, that cross carbon weave runs right through the rod. From the butt right to the tip. The Cobb Special does use a similar weave. It's not as intricate. You can see it's slightly different, not as intricate. It only runs up to the first guard. So that's going to give you immense backbone up to the first guard. It's not that they didn't want to run it through the rod. This rod is designed for something totally different. It's got a softer tip, probably more designed for drop shot fishing where you want a little bit of a tip pull in your rod and things like that, a little bit of a softer action. So you don't want that cross linear carbon running all the way through the rod where it's going to mess up the action of the rod. So different designs for different rods. Two rods designed for two total different purposes. So those are those two rods. Both beautiful rods. I've been lucky enough to fish with Andrew Sierra and his Cobb Special, and I can tell you they are both extremely sensitive. From pretty much the two of the best drop shot rods in the market, my weapon of choice, guys, probably it's an entry level drop shot rod, entry to medium level drop shot rod. Listen, this thing retails for like $1,000. But you can ask Andrew, I think this is my third one now. Don't expect it to last forever. I get about 1.5 to 2 years out of it, and then they normally give up on the join year. But do realize that I am pulling this rod apart 10, 15 times a week. So that joint does get a bit weak. Hands down, probably still my favorite rod. I've fished with almost every rod in the world, guys. This rod is extremely slow tapered, extremely soft. You can, if you hook anything from a blacktail to a bluefish to a small shad, this thing starts bending from the first guard. I love it, but it's like there's nothing else that's more fun and stuff like this. But don't get me wrong, as Andrew can vouch for me, I've pulled some decent fish out to sea on this. I know I've got two sweeties over 1.7 meters out. I've got a just shy of 2 meter reggie out with this guy. Took a lot of pulling. We got him out eventually. I've got a decent silver, a lot of carb. I'm not going to mention everything and things like that. My primary love for this rod is it is super light, guys. This thing weighs nothing. It weighs nothing. It almost gives you that action of bass fishing. The accuracy of this rod casting is unraveled. I don't think I could cast with any of these rods on the table as accurately as I can cast with this rod. Primarily because it's such a soft tip, it's so easy to flick. Normal rod, you're using your shoulder and your arm to cast. This rod, it's just a little wrist action. You're flicking like this. I pretty much cast underhand. This rod is a 3-ounce sinker and a hole pilchard or a squid bait, and it's going the distance that any of the rod's throwing. So it's really light on the hand. It's nice and flipping. You can get your baits to move around. I like to fish a 3 or 2 ounce grapnel on this rod. You notice I won't use a wire grapnel. I'll always use so my bait can move around. I'll actually sit and flick my bait as if I'm jigging a bass lure. I'll move my little squid bait around and things like that. That's pretty much what I love about this rod. Another nice thing about this rod, the guards. If you're banging your rod around, I'm very hard on my equipment, guys. I'll show you what my Evo looks like shortly. Full aluminium guard. So you've got no composite inserts. So if this rod You can knock it, you don't have to worry about breaking your guards, guys, which is another fantastic thing. Guards don't rust. So if you're looking for a really cheap, really, really good rod guard, I think this thing is worth 3 times its money. Have a look at the Penn Allegiance 3. Beautiful rod, guys. Okay, so that's I'll probably do about 80% of my fishing. Before I got my Evo, I was doing 100% of my fishing on that. Other than that, there's another little rod I carry around with me always, guys. Listen, I've fished with it twice. I can't tell you too much about it. The Assassin Bluefish Special, 12 foot. One thing I'm going to say, if you're going to buy one, I've fished with the 13 foot and the 14 foot, buy the 13 or the 14 foot. The 12 foot, no disrespect to them, but maybe it's just the way I fish, it feels very awkward, guys. I can't get distance throwing, it feels too short for, I don't know, there's something a bit off for me on it. The 13 foot I've thrown, it throws beautifully like that. Also, another thing I just found with this rod, with the bionic finger, and I'm there, and I'm casting there, I find you have to use quite a small reel. If I put my BG 5000 on here, I find that I get a lot of braid hitting me on the fingers. But my 4500 with the smaller spool I get away with. So just make sure if you do get a Bluefish Special, you don't get a reel with an oversized spool. You're going to get a lot of braid slap along your fingers, and you're going to lose distance, and it does hurt your fingers a bit as well. I can't tell you anything else about that rod, guys. I haven't caught a fish on it yet. The only reason I bought it, the mate was looking to get rid of it, and so I picked it up for a bargain, so I've added it to my fishing collection. It just makes a nice in-betweener between my Evo and my Penn Allegiance. Nice and light, easy to carry around. I fished with it twice, still haven't hooked anything on it. And then obviously my favorite guys, as you can see, I'm hard on my tackle. I just want to point that out to you. That's not me. That was a small bronzy grabbing my rod. Pulled a little bronzy onto the rocks, and I was trying to get a selfie with it, and he decided to take a bite at my rod. So at least these rods are shark proof. Sharks can't bite through them, or small ones can't at least. So that's the Evo, guys. So I got this rod. I hadn't fished much with the bionic finger and stuff when I got this rod. My first impression of this rod was, this is awful. I also came from fishing with 11 foots. Guys, I've grown into this rod. I think when I heard about this rod the first time, they said it's the best edible rod on the market. There are the Horizons, which are higher spec. You got your Berkeley, your eyelash vipers and things like that. Beautiful rods. I'd still, if I could choose, you could give me an Horizon or give me this, I'd still take my Evo to fish with. Besides the affordability of it, just, I don't know what it is. It's hard to explain, guys. Like if you're an old school fisherman and you go back to the days, I'm talking 20 years ago, we were fishing with Connor Flex and Connor Lynn rods. Those guys that have fished with them, you'll understand what I'm saying. You could hook a cob, you could pretty much put your rod in a rod spike, and that rod would play the fish on its own. It's just got such a natural action, the tip. Such a nice soft tip, the rod would just do that and actually just play the fish for you. So when you're in a neutral fighting position with the fish fighting this rod, your rod's doing all the work for you. You'll see the tip will bend, it'll pull up, it'll bend, pull up. When the fish takes off, there's enough backbone to hold the fish. And when you really need to get stuck in and pull, the backbone of this rod kicks in. It kicks in quite low down on the rod. It's got like quite a heavy parabolic bend on the rod. So you'll see like probably a third of the rod is very nice soft tip for playing fish. And when you do pull, this rod has got backbone that you can't imagine. Like 2, 3, 4, 5 kilo fish, you're not going to feel the backbone of this rod. You're only going to be using the tip. Managed to get a nice black over 10 kilos a couple of months ago on the rocks. It's the first time that I actually felt what this rod can do. I pulled as hard as I can possibly pull, and this rod was even probably at 40 or 50% of its pulling capability. Guys, if you're looking for a rod, a higher spec rod, surf rod, I know the Evo, the gold Evo is discontinued now, but look at probably the Infinity tapers. I assume they're very similar to this, very similarly built. Guys, probably the easiest surf rod to throw because of that nice soft tip. You don't need a crazy good textbook casting action. This thing throws miles. If you've got a short snappy cast, it throws. If you're doing the long pendulum swing cast, this thing throws. This thing throws miles. So, guys, those are our rods. That's what we fish with. There's all other rods I would possibly fish with, but this is what I've got. And so I love all these rods. Other than that, not much else I can tell you about the rods we fish with. Primarily, we are doing edible fishing, so this is pretty much an edible lineup. We're probably going to be targeting some big non-eds one of these days, and we will get some tackle going for that. So we'll probably look at some higher spec rods and things like that. Other than that, guys, if you buy any of these rods, I promise you're not going wrong. Just I suggest in the Bluefish, get a 13 or 14 foot. The 12 foot to me seems there's something not right in my personal view. Other than that, guys, tight lines. Hopefully the rain stops, but if it's not stopped, I know we are out at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. raining or not, we're going to go try to target a silver, because Sunday silver day is for us, and we heading off to Dead Man's Gully, and we're going to try to get the 10 kilo fish for you guys. Until then, cheers.